I drove 2 hours with a $300 birthday cake for my only daughter. She opened the door, stared at me, and said, "Mom, the greatest gift you could ever give me is to vanish from my life forever." I smiled, handed her the cake, and granted her exact wish. 3 years later, the bank took her house, her husband left, and she was working 2 jobs. This is how I disappeared, and why she'll never find me again. That morning, I'd woken up excited the same way I had every July 10th for the past 48 years. Lauren was turning 48, and I'd been counting down the days like she was still 8 years old. I'd ordered the strawberry champagne cake from the same little bakery in Buckhead she used to beg me to stop at after school. $300 felt like nothing for my only child. I knocked, grinning ear to ear, already picturing her face lighting up. Lauren opened the door. No smile, no hug, just a cold, tired stare. "Oh, it's you," she sighed, like I'd interrupted something important. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," I said, holding the cake out proudly. She didn't even glance at it. "We need to talk. Come in." I stepped inside the 4-bedroom house I'd put $50,000 down on so she and Brian could start their family. We sat in the living room I'd helped paint, and then my daughter looked me straight in the eyes and repeated the words that ended everything between us. If you've ever heard something from your own child that shattered you in 1 second, hit subscribe right now. You're going to want to see what happened next. That night, I couldn't sleep. I left the cake on Lauren's porch after she shut the door in my face, drove home in silence, the Georgia humidity pressing against the windows like it wanted in. When I finally walked into my little ranch house in Decatur, the one I'd bought 35 years ago with my first teaching salary, I didn't turn on the lights. I just sat on the couch and let everything hit me at once. 48 years. 48 years of pouring every extra dollar, every weekend, every sick day into her life. I got up, went to the hallway closet, and pulled down the plastic bins I'd labeled Lauren, keepsakes, and receipts. I told myself I was organized, but really I'd kept every single piece of paper because I was proud of what I'd done for her. Tonight, those bins felt like evidence in a trial I never agreed to. I started with the oldest folder. When Lauren was 6 and needed braces, the orthodontist quoted $9,000. My teacher insurance covered almost nothing. I took a second job tutoring after school and on Saturdays for 2 straight years. $9,000 paid in cash envelopes every month. High school. She wanted to go to that private academy in Roswell because the public school wasn't good enough. Tuition was $18,000 a year. I cashed in the small retirement account my late husband had left me, told myself her future was worth more than mine. College, 4 years at the University of Georgia, out-of-state tuition the first year because we still had the old address on file. $89,000 total after scholarships. I worked summer school, picked up night classes at the community college, and took out a home equity loan I'm still paying interest on. The wedding. Lauren wanted the venue at the Swan House. $38,000 before she even picked the dress. Brian's parents paid for the rehearsal dinner and nothing else. I wrote the checks and smiled in every photo. Then the house they live in now. $250,000 down payment so they could afford the mortgage on Brian's sales income. I drained the entire teacher retirement supplement I'd saved for 33 years. Told myself grandchildren needed stability. The cars, 3 of them over the years. The Jeep she had to have in college, the BMW lease when she turned 30, the minivan when Ethan came along, another $41,000 total. Vacations I paid for so the kids could make memories. Disney 3 times, ski trip to Colorado, the beach house in Hilton Head every summer, even when I couldn't afford to stay the whole week. Medical bills when Ava needed speech therapy, $12,000. The private tutor when Ethan struggled with reading, $8,000. The braces, round 2 for both grandkids, another $11,000. I kept spreading the receipts across the living room floor like a giant puzzle. By 3 a.m, I had stacks and calculator tape running across the coffee table. The final number stared back at me, $487,000. Almost $500,000 I had handed over without ever asking for a thank you. I sat there in the dark and cried for the first time in years. Not loud, just quiet and steady until the tears ran out. Then something shifted. The hurt started mixing with the feeling I didn't recognize at first. Anger. Cold, clear, grown-up anger. Lauren wanted me gone? Fine. But she was about to find out exactly what gone really meant. I wiped my face, closed the bins, and went to bed. For the first time in decades, I didn't check my phone to see if she had texted happy birthday to me after all. I already knew she hadn't. The next morning, I put on my Sunday best, the navy skirt suit I used to wear for parent-teacher conferences, and started driving. First stop, the local branch of Truist on La Vista Road. I'd been banking there since 1989. The manager, Carla, greeted me with the same warm smile she always had. "Mrs. Thompson, what brings you in so early?" I slid the withdrawal slip across the counter. "I need to close the joint savings account I share with my daughter. Account ending in 4419. Transfer every penny to my personal checking." Carla's fingers froze on the keyboard. "That's the one with $28,000 in it, right? The Family Emergency Fund?" "That's the one." She looked up, concerned. "Is everything all right at home?" "Everything is perfect," I said, and meant it for the first time in years. 10 minutes later, I walked out with a cashier's check made out to Margaret Thompson only. Second stop, the title company downtown where I'd co-signed Lauren and Brian's mortgage back in 2009. I still remembered the closing table, how proud I felt handing over the $250,000 check so they could buy in that good school district. The loan officer, a young man named Tyler, who wasn't even born when I started teaching, pulled up the file. "As co-signer, ma'am, you have full rights to request a payoff quote or even accelerate the loan if there's evidence of financial instability." "Brian lost his regional sales job last month," I said calmly. "He told me himself. They've already missed June's payment. I have the email." Tyler swallowed. "In that case, we can start the default process immediately if you choose." I didn't answer right away. I just looked at the photo on his desk, him with a toddler on his shoulders, and thought about Ethan and Ava. "Send the 90-day notice. I'll cover July and August so the kids have time to figure things out. After that, the bank can take whatever steps it needs to." Third stop, Hal Grayson's law office in Brookhaven. Hal had been my husband's best friend before the heart attack took Tom in 2002. He'd handled every legal thing I'd ever needed and never sent a bill. He listened without interrupting while I told him everything that happened on Lauren's birthday. When I finished, his eyes were wet. "Maggie, I'm going to do this pro bono, and I'm going to do it fast." By 4 o'clock that afternoon, he had drafted a new will leaving everything to the Georgia Teachers Retirement System Scholarship Fund and a small trust for Ethan and Ava that Lauren could never touch until they turned 30. Revocation of the durable power of attorney I'd signed when Ava was born. Change of beneficiary on my 2 life insurance policies and my state pension death benefit. A formal letter to the mortgage company confirming I was exercising my rights as co-signer due to the fault risk. I signed every page with a steady hand. Before I left, Hal slid one more document across the desk. "This is a restraining order template. If she tries to claim you're incompetent or files any kind of guardianship, we counter immediately. I've already got a psychiatrist lined up to examine you on record. You're sharper than most people half your age." I hugged him so hard his glasses fogged. On the drive home, I stopped at the grocery store and did something I hadn't done in 15 years. I bought the expensive coffee, the real half and half, the ribeye steak that was on sale for once. I filled the cart like a woman who no longer had to choose between her groceries and her daughter's electric bill. When I got back to the house, I sat at the kitchen table with a legal pad and started writing the letter I knew would be the last thing Lauren ever received from me. Not one word of anger, just facts. Every dollar, every sacrifice, every time I said yes when I should have said no. 27 pages when I finished. I sealed it in a manila envelope along with copies of every document I'd signed that day, wrote Lauren's name on the front in my best teacher handwriting, and set it by the door. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. 2 days later, I made the call I never thought I would. I dug through my old address book, the one with the cracked leather cover, and found Christine Walsh's number scribbled in blue ink from 1992. We'd been roommates at Georgia State, back when we both thought we'd change the world one classroom at a time. Life pulled us apart after graduation, but every Christmas card she sent still ended with the same line, "Doors always open in Oregon." The phone rang twice. Maggie Thompson, as I live and breathe. Her voice hadn't changed a bit. 30 minutes later, the plan was set. Christine had a furnished mother-in-law suite behind her house outside Bend. Rent was whatever I could afford, no questions asked. She'd pick me up at the Greyhound station in Portland whenever I was ready. I hung up and started moving like a woman half my age. First, I called Dot Miller next door, the only neighbor I trusted completely. 71, widowed, sharp as ever. I told her everything. She didn't gasp or cry. She just said, "Give me your spare key and tell me what day." Then the practical things. I listed my house with a realtor who promised a 30-day close, cash offer, no repairs. I sold the car to CarMax the same afternoon. Took the check and opened a new checking account at a credit union Lauren had never heard of. New debit card, new checks, everything mailed to a private mailbox I rented in Avondale Estates. I packed 2 suitcases and 1 carry-on. Teaching awards went into a box for Goodwill. Every photo of Lauren after age 10 went into a separate envelope. I wasn't ready to throw them away, but I wasn't taking them with me either. The manila envelope with the 27-page letter and all the legal copies went into a second envelope addressed to Lauren in Dot's handwriting. Inside, I added a short note on the outside. Deliver 1 week after you notice I'm gone, not before. Thursday night, I took the Greyhound from Atlanta at 11:45 p.m., 42 hours, 3 transfers, 1,900 miles. I paid cash for the ticket, left my cell phone on the kitchen counter with a Post-it that said, "For Lauren." The bus pulled out of downtown under a half moon. I watched the skyline disappear and felt something loosen in my chest I didn't know had been knotted for decades. Friday evening, Lauren called the first time, then 6 more times. Texts started coming in Saturday morning. "Mom, where are you? This isn't funny. Ethan has a game tomorrow. You promised you'd be there. Fine, be dramatic." By Sunday, the tone changed. The bank left a voicemail about the mortgage. "What did you do?" Dot waited until Wednesday, exactly as I asked. She drove to Lauren's house, handed over the thick envelope, and told her she'd found my place empty, mail piling up, phone on the counter. Dot said Lauren went white, ripped it open right there on the porch, and started reading while standing up. Dot watched her knees buckle halfway through page 4. I didn't know any of this yet. I was on the last leg of the bus ride, somewhere west of Salt Lake City, watching the landscape turn from red dirt to pine trees. My new phone, a cheap prepaid I'd bought in Denver, stayed off. I wasn't ready to hear her voice. When the bus finally rolled into Portland late Thursday night, Christine was waiting in her old Subaru, gray hair longer than I remembered, same warm smile. She hugged me like no time had passed and whispered, "Welcome home, Maggie." We drove east through the darkness towards Bend, the Cascades rising black against the stars. For the first time in 71 years, nobody on earth knew exactly where I was, and nobody needed a dime from me. Friday evening, Lauren called the first time on the new prepaid phone Christine had handed me in the car. I let it ring until voicemail picked up, then deleted the message without listening. By Saturday night, the calls were coming every 20 minutes. I turned the phone face down on the pine table in Christine's kitchen and poured myself a second glass of wine while the Cascade Mountains turned pink outside the window. Sunday morning, I finally turned it on just long enough to scroll the texts. Mom, pick up. This isn't funny anymore. Ethan's coach asked where you were. The bank sent a certified letter about the mortgage. Call me now. Monday, the tone switched to panic. Mom, they said the house goes to auction if we don't pay $92,000 by September. What did you do with the emergency account? Brian is freaking out. Tuesday, she tried guilt. Ava cried herself to sleep asking for Grandma. You're scaring the kids. Wednesday, she went nuclear. I'm calling the police to do a welfare check. You're obviously not in your right mind. Thursday morning, Dot called me from her landline, voice low like she was hiding in her own pantry. She's losing it, Maggie. Showed up here yesterday with Brian and the kids, demanding I tell her where you went. I played dumb like we practiced. She opened your envelope right on my porch swing and read the whole thing out loud, screaming at some parts, crying at others. When she got to the part about the cosigner rights, she threw the papers in the air like confetti. Brian just stood there looking sick. Dot paused. She asked if you'd mentioned Oregon. I told her you used to talk about going back to Savannah. She bought it. They left an hour later. I thanked her, hung up, and walked outside to Christine's back deck. The air smelled like pine and cold creek water. I felt zero guilt. Only relief. That same afternoon, the prepaid rang again. This time, it was an Atlanta number I didn't know. I answered. Mrs. Margaret Thompson, this is Officer Ramirez, DeKalb County Police. We've had a missing person report filed by your daughter. I'm not missing, I said calmly. I'm exactly where I want to be. He asked a few routine questions, took my new address for the report, and that was that. 2 hours later, Lauren tried again. I answered this time. Mom? Her voice cracked the second she heard me breathe. Yes. Where are you? Are you safe? I'm safe, I'm happy, and I'm done. She started crying, the ugly kind. You can't do this. The bank is foreclosing. Brian's job fell through again. We're going to lose everything. You already lost everything the moment you told me to vanish, I said. I'm simply making it official. Please come home. We'll fix this. I didn't mean. You meant every word, and now you get to live with them. I hung up while she was still begging. Friday, the messages turned angry. You're destroying your own grandchildren's lives over hurt feelings. Wait until I tell them what kind of grandmother you really are. Saturday, she tried the medical route. I've scheduled a competency evaluation. If you don't come back voluntarily, the court will make you. I forwarded that one straight to Hal Grayson with one line, see you in court. By the end of that first week in Oregon, the phone had 68 missed calls and 41 texts. I backed everything up, then blocked her number for good. Christine watched me do it, handed me a fresh cup of coffee, and said, welcome to the first day of the rest of your life. I drank it on the porch while the sun came up over the mountains, and for the first time in 71 years, nobody needed anything from me. While I was breathing the cool Oregon air for the first time in my life, Lauren was unraveling back in Georgia. Dot kept me updated with short calls from the grocery store parking lot so Brian wouldn't overhear. By week 3, the bank had taped the official foreclosure notice to their front door. Lauren tried to refinance, but no lender would touch it with my name still on the original loan and a default already in process. The auction date got set for the Tuesday after Labor Day. Brian moved out the first week of August. He told Lauren he couldn't watch the house go and still keep pretending everything was fine. He took a studio apartment near his new warehouse job and filed for joint custody of Ethan and Ava. The kids split their weeks between a 2-bedroom rental and their dad's pull-out couch. Lauren lasted another month in the house, packing boxes between crying fits. Dot said she'd see her loading the minivan at midnight sometimes, like she couldn't stand being inside those walls anymore. When the marshal showed up to change the locks, Lauren was still carrying out the last load of clothes. She left the keys on the kitchen counter and drove away without looking back. She and the kids moved into a 2-bedroom apartment off Memorial Drive, the kind with thin walls and a pool that never quite got cleaned. Rent was $2,200 a month, more than their old mortgage because her credit was wrecked. She took the night shift at a 24-hour pharmacy and weekend mornings at a coffee shop in Decatur. Double shifts, barely sleeping, picking the kids up from aftercare in her green apron, still smelling like espresso. Ethan started high school that fall and quit the travel baseball team because they couldn't afford the fees. Ava's dance classes ended the same week. Lauren told them Grandma had health problems far away, but the kids were old enough to know something bigger had happened. In October, she tried one last move. She hired a cut-rate attorney and filed for adult guardianship over me, claiming early onset dementia and financial self-harm. Hal Grayson got the papers the same day and laughed out loud in his office. He flew to Portland the next week, put me in front of a court-appointed neurologist at OHSU, and had the report back in 48 hours. Perfect cognitive function, 0 impairment, detailed recall of every decision I'd made. The Georgia judge threw the case out before it ever went to hearing. Lauren got slapped with court costs and a warning about frivolous filings. By Christmas, she'd blocked Dot on everything because Dot refused to pass messages anymore. The grandkids sent me drawings through Dot's mailbox. Ethan's was a baseball diamond with "We miss you, Grandma" written in the outfield. I kept them on Christine's refrigerator and sent nothing back. Not yet. I, on the other hand, was living a life I didn't know existed. Mornings walking the Deschutes River Trail with Christine's golden retriever. Afternoons volunteering at the local library teaching adults to read, something I'd always wanted to do but never had time. Evenings on the deck with a blanket and a book, watching the alpenglow hit the Three Sisters. I opened an investment account with the foreclosure proceeds when they finally came through, $189,000 after fees, and let it grow while I lived on my teacher pension and Social Security. For the first time ever, my money was working for me instead of disappearing into someone else's life. I made friends who asked about my past only when I wanted to tell. Nobody needed me to watch their dog or loan them grocery money. Nobody called me dramatic for wanting quiet. And every time the phone rang with an unknown Georgia number, I let it go to voicemail and deleted it unheard. Lauren had asked me to vanish. I did. And the silence she got in return was louder than any argument we ever had. 6 months later, Dot called me with the news I'd been waiting for without admitting it. "The house sold at auction yesterday," she said, voice steady. "Some investor from Florida picked it up for $290,000. That's $110,000 less than what was owed once the second mortgage and fees got tacked on." I was sitting on Christine's deck splitting kindling, the axe feeling good in my hands. And Lauren? Working doubles. Pharmacy at night, coffee shop weekends, grocery store deli on the days the kids are with Brian. She's down to one car, the old minivan with the cracked windshield. Kids catch the city bus to school now. Ethan got a job stocking shelves after classes just to help with groceries. Dot paused. She aged 10 years in 6 months, Maggie. Looks exhausted all the time. I set another log on the chopping block and brought the axe down clean. In Oregon, spring had come early. I'd planted a vegetable garden for the first time since Tom died, tomatoes and zucchini already climbing the trellis. I'd joined a watercolor class in Bend on Tuesdays and a book club that met in a brewery on Thursdays. My pension and Social Security stretched further than they ever had in Georgia because nobody was bleeding them dry. The foreclosure money finally hit my new account in May, $189,000 after the bank took its cut. I paid cash for a small 2-bedroom condo 10 minutes from Christine, the first place that had ever been 100% mine. Title in my name only, no cosigners, no joint anything. Hal sent me the final paperwork from Lauren's failed guardianship attempt. The judge's order called her filing frivolous and motivated by financial interest rather than genuine concern. She owed $3,000 in court costs she still hadn't paid. Brian reached out once through Dot. Asked if he could give the kids my new address when they were old enough to write on their own. I told Dot yes, but only when they turned 18, no sooner. Lauren tried one last public play, created a GoFundMe titled Help Single Moms Save Family Home After Mother's Abandonment, raised $900 before someone in the comments posted a link to the court documents. It got taken down the same day. By the end of that first year, the texts from unknown numbers had stopped. The Atlanta area code no longer made my heart race. I'd become someone people here simply knew as Maggie, who volunteered at the library, who made the best zucchini bread at the farmer's market, who finally had time to read every book she'd ever wanted. I turned 72 that July, with Christine and 6 new friends around a campfire by the river. No cake I didn't bake myself. No guilt about the price. Nobody wished I'd vanish. And for the first time in my life, that felt exactly right. 3 years have passed since that birthday. I'm 74 now, sitting on my own balcony in Bend, watching the sun drop behind the Cascades with a glass of wine I paid for myself. My condo is paid off. My investment account just crossed $620,000. The teacher pension still arrives on the 3rd of every month, and for the first time in my life, every dime stays in my name. Ethan turned 17 last spring. Ava is 14. They found me anyway. It started with a handwritten letter forwarded by Hal Grayson, postmarked from Brian's new address. 2 pages from Ethan, 1 from Ava, careful printing on lined notebook paper. They wrote that their dad had finally told them the truth. No sugarcoating, no grandma got sick. They said they understood why I left, that they'd read parts of the 27-page letter when their mom wasn't looking, and that they didn't blame me. Ethan closed with, "When I'm 18 next year, I want to come see Oregon with my own money, if you'll have me." I read it 4 times, cried once, and wrote back the same week. A short note on real stationery, the kind with mountain scenes across the top. I told them I was proud of the young adults they were becoming, that the door would always be open when they were ready to walk through it on their own terms, and that love doesn't have to hurt to be real. I signed it Grandma Maggie for the first time in 3 years. Lauren never wrote. Dot says she moved to a smaller apartment after the child support got recalculated. Still works the pharmacy night shift, still smells like burnt coffee and antiseptic. She avoids the old neighborhood. When someone asks about her mother, she says, "We don't speak," and changes the subject. Brian sends a Christmas card every year now. Just a simple printed photo of the kids and a short note. They're good kids. You'd be proud. I always write back. I never went back to Georgia. Not once. Not for a funeral. Not for a graduation. My life is here now. Morning walks along the river, volunteering at the library, Tuesday watercolor class where nobody knows how much I used to give away. I have friends who call to check on me because they want to, not because they need something. And every July 10th, on the anniversary of the day Lauren told me to vanish, I light a single candle on a plain strawberry cupcake from the bakery down the street. I blow it out myself and make the same wish that every parent who's ever been taken for granted finds the courage to choose themselves before it's too late. Because here's what I learned at 71, the lesson that cost me $500,000 and 48 years to finally understand. Love is not a blank check. Presence is not a prison sentence. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone who wishes you gone is to go. I granted Lauren her birthday wish. She's living with the consequences. I'm living with the peace. And peace, it turns out, is worth every single thing I left behind.